All right. Successfully concluded. If one doesn't admire anything else, one must speak to the comportment of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu. Quite a number of tough questions, being in the hot seat today, he had to face. And some, of course, he could only offer assurances, hope, and so on. But three important things that I noted to point to our viewers and to our guests as well. First, on the issue of the possibility that during this week there was a window to extend PVC's collection, he said no. Things that have been closed on the timetable remain closed. So that forecloses the possibility that there could be any extension of time for PVC's collection. The same thing applies to campaigning. The campaigns had closed on Thursday at midnight ahead of today's elections. From what the INEC chairman said this evening, the campaigns remain closed. Even though how that will then ultimately work, I guess, will then...
And then he explained why the PVC collection is closed, because he said everybody has been asking for the figures of collected PVCs and uncollected, and they need time to collate that figure. That's the main reason why. Yeah.
He also offered very strong assurances that materials that had already been deployed ahead of the elections were being retrieved and being stored, and that whenever they are going to be deployed again, all stakeholders will be present to witness that the integrity of those materials had not been compromised. Among the wide variety of things that the INEC chairman addressed during this briefing today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us. It was a very long event, but we decided to stay on with it right until the very end because we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to hear everything and understand everything that was coming from there, because it's so critical in the week ahead. What did you make of it?
I almost was getting sold to the whole postponement by the chairman until he got to the end of his speech. And I became a bit worried as to the actual reason why this postponement happened. I can actually confidently say that this is the reason why they postponed this election.
Okay, that is, you did identify a particular thing.
When it comes to logistics, like I said earlier, INEC had consistently, every other second, every other hour, up till yesterday evening, assured Nigerians the way the chairman was reading out assurances today again. So what I'm asking is, what is the value of Professor Yakubu's assurances? We've had these assurances per second, up to yesterday evening. I tend to now sincerely believe that something caused this postponement beyond what we can see and beyond what he can tell us.
So I think
the chairman, in all honesty, may be under oath or obligation not to disclose the real reason why this election was postponed. I'm disappointed.
You agree? Remember, because when you say absolutely,
he said no political reason. Anyway,
remember I said it earlier on that at the end of the day, this whole press briefing is going to be about excuses. Now, the only point he said that alluded to the reason why it was postponed was that they wanted to ensure that all the polling stations or polling booths opened at the same time. But the question is, in spite of the postponement, can anybody give us that guarantee that all the polling stations are going to open at the same time? The answer is no. So at the end of the day, what was the essence of the postponement?
Well, you were looking for one reason, and he gave a number of, especially when he was talking about flight delays causing them not to be able to take materials, so they had to go by road, which was slow. So I don't think there was any one reason. He gave like a flurry.
But he also said they had alternative solutions to all of those. They, within 24 hours, they also corrected, when they had flight issues, they used slow-moving vehicles. He didn't tell us whether they arrived or they didn't arrive.
They said slow now. If it's slow-moving, I must have arrived late.
But the bottom line was, he said that he wanted all the polling stations to resume at the same time.
Uniformity.
Yes, uniformity. That's the bottom line. But the truth is, can it ever be guaranteed? The answer is no. Come 23rd of February, the entire polling station will not open at the same time. So at the end of the day, this postponement is just
remember that the whole country will be in this election. So if, assuming that materials got to maybe a particular state a little late, they could use their own wisdom and the discussion they have in that office to say these guys can start by 10 and end by 4.
Which has
doesn't
happened
give much time
in the
for them
past.
to go there and,
and it has happened in the past.
Remember, the chairman has said this thing is not caused by political, influence. It's not caused by security challenges. It's not caused by unavailability of materials.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is the cause of this
availability of materials could mean it's available, but it didn't get to its destination.
After
which is the lack
how
of
many years
implementation.
of planning to bring them there?
Exactly.
Now, let me also acknowledge the fact that the whole thing is a bit challenging because of the number of parties that we have, number of people on the ballot paper, the size of the documents and all of that. I can acknowledge that, but there's no reason whatsoever, if we're building what we have said here earlier about logistic management, for us to have an election we've started planning for more, and he acknowledges here that he has enough fund. Somebody asked, do you have enough money to do this? And he said they are not complaining. So INEC is well funded. It's just to deploy the resources which you can fund to get this things running.
Again,
there's something more than
gentlemen, we have somebody in Abuja.
Exactly. Dr.
Adeni.
You too, I want to thank you for your patience at this point, for staying through with us all this while. You can see that if, in spite of the attempt to explain, it has, rather than douse, it has generated further heat. I don't know if that's your own position too. Did you get anything from the INEC chairman's briefing today that gave you some reason to pull the temper down and see some reason with him as to why this postponement was necessary?
Yes, Ladi, thanks for coming back to me again. For me, I think maybe persuaded, but not really convinced, and it just makes me to fear more, to worry more, and it flows with what a lot of commentators have said, that after 4 years, we couldn't deliver an election, then he needs 1 more week to complete the preparation. There's a bit of crisis of trust created by some of his pleas, some of his statements. But be that as it may, I need us to take these as a fait accompli and be careful with conjectures, because we do not have any option. It's only INEC we have. INEC is the main vehicle to assure our citizens, once again through an election, of their status as citizens, as people empowered that has the power to vote in their leaders. We need to put that trust in them back again, even reluctantly, and hope that in another 7 days they will be able to clear our doubts. I need the INEC chairman to also understand that it is okay for a gynecologist to take the pregnant woman to the labor room, do all the necessary preparations. But if unfortunately at the end of the day, the gynecologist is not able to deliver the baby, I'm not sure the parents or observers will be happy. We are not going to commend him. We shouldn't commend him for all the preparations, all the anonymity of work, all the cumbersome nature of preparing for election shouldn't be our concern at this moment. It's got 4 years to prepare for it. It's collected, there's so much money has been voted for it. There hasn't been any problem. We've not had any major hiccups so far. He told us that 14 items were listed, 13 have been completed, yes, but we need the 14th one to be completed, just like the child that we're expecting the woman to deliver for us to commend him. So if after 13 items, 14th is left out, then we are going to mark him down at the end of the day. But then there's still room for reprieve. There's still room for them to redeem themselves. And the room is for them to give to us the proverbial free, fair, and credible election. At this level, we'll have to reinvest our hope in them again because we have no option. And that's why I say we're taking it as a fait accompli. But I'm not going to, I will be careful with conjectures. And from what we have seen, we have not seen any partisan interest so far from our own judgment, from our own evaluation. Perhaps we could leave it at that and hope that in another 7 days, at the end of the day, they're going to make us happy again and take us out of the rude shock that they plunged us in this morning. Yes, Ladi.
All right, then. Dr. Abiodun Adeni is on that semi-positive note that I would want to leave this part of the discussion. I want to thank Lawrence Onoche. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
I hope your predictions don't come true. We want to be positive.
I hope so too.
We would want to be positive.
I hope so too.
Oji Udemezwe, thank you so much for being with us.
Nigeria is making progress. We'll get there.
We hope so. We sincerely hope so, and we're praying that that happens. At this time, we will want to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll explore reactions to now not the postponement. That's what we've been talking about since morning. But now to the INEC chairman's explanation for it and then the way forward. We'll have different perspectives on that afterwards.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We've been here covering everything to do with the elections 2019. It's been a fantastic time today. We've heard from a lot of people, their reactions to the postponement of the elections today. And just to say thank you to everyone who sent in a short video to us, different reactions to the postponement. We did give out the hashtag The Verdict, and hashtag 2019 elections, and we're happy that we do see people taking advantage of that. So do continue to do that.
Well, there are still other reactions coming in on the elections postponement. We'll take one of those, and then we'll talk about the explanation the INEC chairman has given for this postponement. That the chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdul Salami Abubakar, who is also one of Nigeria's former heads of state, is asking Nigerians to keep faith with the system and to trust INEC to conduct a credible election on Saturday in spite of the postponement. General Abubakar, who was speaking at his residence in Minna, Niger State, is also asking Nigerians to conduct themselves peacefully and shun acts capable of dividing the country. He said although it is disappointing that the elections had to be postponed when Nigerians from across the country had traveled to various locations to vote, the issue of logistics given by INEC is understandable.
Please ensure that we keep this peace. We do not want any disturbances because of the setback we have. And as much as possible, to bear the disappointment we'll all have, because all of us travel to our various locations in order to do our civic responsibility. Unfortunately, here we are today. The election has been postponed by 1 week. Let's hope and pray for INEC that they overcome their problems, and then next Saturday we'll go to election.
Former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdul Salami Abubakar, speaking about the postponement. Well, in the meantime, the INEC chairman himself, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has been explaining in some more detail about why the elections had to be postponed at the virtually 11th and a half hour. Speaking at a very extensive news briefing in Abuja a short while ago, Professor Yakubu explains that the agency had fully prepared for the election with all materials ready, but had to grapple with logistics issues. He says the commission has been unable to dispatch materials to some states by air due to bad weather. He also said that the commission has since relied on transporting the electoral materials by road. He ever says INEC is working at top speed to ensure that the logistic challenges are resolved before Saturday.
Preparations for the 2019 general elections have been extensively tasking for INEC. It is therefore not unexpected that such a tremendous national mobilization of men and materials will encounter operational challenges, and we have had our own fair share of these challenges. There has been delays in delivering ballot papers and result sheets for the elections, which is not unusual. However, I must emphasize that all ballot papers and result sheets were ready before the elections, despite the very tight legal framework for finalizing nominations of candidates and dealing with the spate of legal challenges that accompany it. In this regard, the Commission has been sued or joined in 640 court cases arising from the nomination of candidates alone. As of today, there are 40 different court orders against the Commission on whether to add or drop candidates. Interestingly, the last order actually arrived yesterday. The net effect of this is that there is usually roughly 1 month window for the Commission to print ballot papers and result sheets and either fly or transport them to several destinations until they finally get to each of the polling units. Unfortunately, in the last 1 week, flights within the country have been adversely affected by bad weather. For instance, 3 days ago, we were unable to deliver materials to some locations due to bad weather. We therefore had to rely on slow-moving, long-haulage vehicles to locations that can be serviced by air, in spite of the fact that we created 5 zonal hubs.
The INEC chairman there, Mahmoud Yakubu, giving us some explanation as to why today's election was postponed. We all know that the elections will now take place on Saturday next week, which is February the 23rd. So we're going to expand the conversation. I have a full panel of consultants and experts who want to x-ray not just what happened today, but also the INEC chairman's explanations at that press conference, which we saw a short while ago. And with me here in Lagos is Channels Television's data and information consultant, Babajide Ogunsonwo. Thanks a lot for joining us on the program. I also have Channels Television's consultant as well, election consultant, I might add, GT Ogunye. My pleasure. To my immediate right is the National Chairman, Alliance for New Nigeria, Emmanuel Dania. Thanks for joining us. Over there in Abuja, I have the convener of the Voters Union, Mariam Yakubu. Thanks for joining us on the program. And I also have Ezenwa Mwangu, who is a member of the Yaga Africa, also there in the Abuja studio. Thanks for joining us on the program as well. Okay, Jide, let me just start with you. You heard the INEC chairman there talk about some of the reasons and some of the logistics. What do you think?
You know, if you listen carefully to how the INEC chairman started, he carefully avoided using the word postponement. He used the word reschedule. But more than what the INEC chairman said, we need to consider this, and that is the aeroplane carrying the confidence of Nigerians, laddie. That aeroplane has lost an engine. The only thing that we have today is it hasn't yet crashed. Listen carefully to the words of a former United States congressman. He says, if you are explaining, you are losing. And so we've seen the INEC chairman explain the position. But here's what really bothers me. 3 things. 1812, the United States attacked the Brits. That same year, they had a presidential election. Did they reschedule the election? No, they didn't. 1864, when Abraham Lincoln was re-elected, that was the same year the United States were having a civil war. Did they reschedule the election? No, they didn't. 1944, President Franklin Roosevelt was facing World War II. The United States had a presidential election that year. Did they reschedule the election? No, they didn't. And so we've seen the United States with over 2 centuries of democracy. If you go through all their files of elections, you will struggle looking through those millions of files to find once in over 2 centuries.
So you're saying we should not have rescheduled this election?
No, we're saying today that we need to do 2 things. The first is we need to plan and we need to plot. And so what has really gone wrong isn't because INEC has failed to plan. The evidence shows it is a failure of plotting. What do I mean by plotting? Scenario planning. And so while a lot of emphasis went into preparations, we should ask ourselves how much of scenario planning on logistics, how much of scenario planning on materials did the Independent National Electoral Commission do?
I see you nodding when he was talking. Now you remember that the INEC chairman has said to us, campaigning is over according to this timetable. I know you're from the ANN, just to remind you.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can, just like what is mentioned. It's very sad. It's a very, very sad situation. The INEC chairman is someone who, you know, I have a lot of respect for as an individual, and the majority of the team, members of INEC. And I've always, you know, anytime I've had the reason to talk about INEC, I've always spoken to them in, you know, with high esteem. But this is bad. This is not good at all. Because what he just mentioned is, this is